He was just repairing her armor, until the alien queen whispered, "You're touching me too softly." Before the story begins, dear listener, if you enjoy deep and emotional sci-fi stories about humans and aliens, kindly subscribe to this channel. HFY. It helps more than you know. Now let's begin. The repair bay on the edge of Vornith Prime was silent that evening. Steam hissed softly from the pipes, and sparks flickered under the dim blue lights. The smell of metal and ozone filled the air. A young human mechanic named Ethan Cole stood beside a massive workbench, wiping his hands nervously on a dirty cloth. He had repaired dozens of alien machines, ships, and even combat suits before. But tonight was different. Tonight, he had been summoned by royal command. Rumor said that no one refused a command from the alien queen of Vornith. Those who did were never seen again. Ethan didn't know if that was true. He only knew that his hands wouldn't stop shaking. The hangar door opened with a deep metallic echo. Every alien worker in the bay bowed instantly. From the entrance, surrounded by guards in black armor, walked Queen Zalara. She was tall, elegant, her skin shimmering like silver glass, and her eyes glowing with quiet power. Her armor was more than just protection. It was part of her. Alive and pulsing faintly with every step she took, Ethan had seen warlords, smugglers, and alien beasts before, but nothing like her. There was something terrifyingly calm about the queen, like a storm waiting to break. "Human," one of the guards barked. Pushing him forward, Ethan nearly dropped his toolkit. "Your orders are simple," the guard continued. "Repair Her Majesty's armor module. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not look at her directly. And do not touch anything unasked." Ethan nodded quickly, trying not to make eye contact. "Yes, sir," he whispered. The queen turned her head slightly, her voice smooth but cold. "Leave us," she said to her guards. They bowed and stepped outside. Sealing the heavy doors behind them, the room grew silent again. Except for the quiet hum of alien energy from her armor, Ethan swallowed hard. He had repaired broken engines before, fixed weapons, even rebuilt battlesuits. But this was something else. The armor seemed to breathe, its plates shifting like the surface of water. He could see faint light running through it, veins of blue energy that pulsed with rhythm. It looked almost alive. He opened his repair case slowly, trying not to show fear. Where is the damage, Your Majesty?" he asked softly. The queen's eyes flicked toward him. Her expression unreadable, she extended one arm, and a sharp hiss echoed as the plates on her shoulder unlocked, revealing a burnt, cracked section. "There," she said simply. "Fix it." Ethan stepped closer. His heart pounded in his chest. He could feel heat radiating from the armor, and the faint scent of alien biometal filled his nose. He set his small scanner against the damaged part, and the scanner blinked red. It wasn't a mechanical error. It was alive. The armor reacted to his touch. The surface rippled faintly under his tool. Ethan froze. He looked up, but the queen didn't move. Her eyes stayed on him, watching every second. He continued carefully, using his smallest nanotorch. The energy lines around the damage began to glow again, almost like healing skin. Then, for just a moment, the armor made a sound, a faint, soft pulse. It was like a heartbeat. Ethan's breath caught. The queen noticed. Of course she did. Her voice broke the silence like thunder. "Continue, human," she ordered, her tone sharp. "Yes, Your Majesty," Ethan murmured, quickly bending to his work, but he couldn't stop wondering. Was this armor truly alive? Or was it something far stranger? He could feel faint vibrations through his gloves. It was like the armor felt his presence, responding to his movements. He tried to ignore it, focusing on the burnt energy core beneath the plate. Each second stretched into eternity. Then suddenly, The armor released a burst of blue light. Ethan stumbled back, shielding his eyes. The queen did not move. The light faded. And he realized the damage was healed. He had done it, but before he could speak, the queen turned her gaze toward him. "You're trembling," she said softly. Almost curious, Ethan swallowed hard. "Forgive me." "Your Majesty," he said, "your armor is different from anything I've worked on." Her lips curved faintly, not a smile. "Not quite different," she repeated. Her voice low. "You have no idea, human." The air in the room grew heavier. Ethan could feel her eyes on him, almost studying him like a rare creature. He stepped back slowly, trying to show respect. But something in her gaze made him stop. It wasn't just power. It was loneliness, deep and cold, hiding behind her perfect control. When he finally lowered his tools, she turned away, the light of her armor fading to a soft glow. "You will return tomorrow," she said without looking at him. Her voice left no room for refusal. Ethan nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty," he whispered. As the guards entered and the door opened, he stole one last glance at her. The Queen of Vornith stood in silence, her glowing armor flickering like the heart of a dying star. He didn't know it yet, but that single repair was only the beginning, and soon, even a human mechanic would learn that not all armor protects. Some hides what's truly fragile underneath. The next morning came slowly on Vornith Prime. The twin suns rose above the metallic skyline, spilling white light over the dark towers. For Ethan Cole, sleep had been impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faint blue pulse of the Queen's armor. The way it moved, alive, watching, and that voice. Smooth and cold, echoing in his head. Different, you have no idea. Human. He arrived at the Royal Bay earlier than ordered. Guards scanned him. Machines checked every tool, even his gloves. No one smiled. No one spoke. They looked at him like a bug crawling too close to a flame. When the heavy doors opened again, the chamber was darker than before. Only a few narrow beams of white light cut through the air. And there she was, Queen Zelara. Seated in a circular platform of light, her armor had changed overnight. The glowing veins now ran deeper, faster, the color shifting between silver and blue like flowing energy. It was both beautiful and terrifying. "You returned?" Her voice filled the silence. Smooth as glass, Ethan bowed slightly, keeping his eyes down. "Yes, Your Majesty." "As ordered." She rose from her seat, the sound of her movement like metal whispering. "Do you fear me, human?" She asked suddenly. Ethan hesitated. He wanted to lie, but somehow, in her presence, the truth came out. "Yes," he said quietly, "but I still came." For a second, there was no sound. Then the Queen's lips curved just slightly. "Good," she said. "Perhaps courage still lives among your kind." Ethan stepped closer to begin his work. The new section he was asked to fix was near her chest plate, where multiple power nodes converged. It looked delicate, too delicate for normal tools. He adjusted his energy wrench carefully, but as soon as he touched the plate, the armor reacted. Pulse ran through it like electricity. The surface shimmered under his hand, and the blue light around her body flared brighter. Ethan pulled back instantly. "I didn't mean." "Continue," the Queen interrupted. Her tone soft but commanding, her eyes glowed faintly. And the armor settled again. "It responds to emotion," she said quietly. "Yours and mine." Ethan frowned. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Not impossible," she replied, turning slightly so he could see the shifting light under the armor. "Organic nanite symbiosis, bonded to every nerve in my body. It feeds on energy and feeling." Ethan couldn't believe it. The armor wasn't just alive, it was connected to her. He realized every touch he made wasn't on metal, It was on living skin. Suddenly his chest felt tight. He focused on his tools, pretending calm. But his heartbeat betrayed him. He could feel her gaze even when he looked away. The sound of the tools filled the silence, mixed with the soft hum of energy as he worked. Strange images flickered in the light. The armor's glow shifted patterns for a second. He thought he saw shapes, symbols, maybe memories. Flashes of a battle, of screams, of fire. Then the image vanished, leaving only the soft blue light. He blinked, shaking his head. "Did you see that?" he asked before realizing he'd spoken aloud. The Queen's expression didn't change. "You saw nothing," she said firmly. Though her voice trembled for the first time, he could tell she was lying. For hours, he worked in silence. The room felt smaller, like the air itself was watching him. Every spark of his tools made the armor breathe. Each movement triggered a ripple that ran across her entire body. And every time that happened, he saw her flinch, just slightly. He slowed down, careful not to hurt her. That's when she suddenly spoke again. "Why do you stop?" she asked, her tone curious. "I don't want to cause pain," Ethan said softly. "Pain is survival," she replied. "It reminds us we are alive." Her voice softened. "Continue, human. Your hesitation confuses it." He nodded slowly and resumed his repair. His fingers brushed the edges of a damaged energy node, and again. The armor pulsed, but this time the light didn't fade immediately. It spread across her form, glowing brighter, and he could feel warmth rising in the air. It wasn't from the tools. It was from her. Then, without warning, the Queen let out a low breath, not in pain, but something else. Her hand lifted slightly, stopping him. "Enough," she whispered, her voice strangely fragile. Ethan stepped back, confused. Her armor flickered again, like it couldn't decide between reacting or resisting. He realized something deeper was happening. This armor was not just technology. It was tied to her emotions, her memories, maybe even her soul. He turned off his tools slowly. "Your Majesty, this armor, it reacts to me," he said. "Yes," she replied simply, not meeting his eyes. "I told you, it responds to emotion, and you, human, are unpredictable." Her tone was calm, but her eyes, they looked almost vulnerable. "Is that dangerous?" he asked. She gave a faint smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. "For you?" "Perhaps," she said. "For me?" Certainly, Ethan didn't understand what she meant, but he could sense the weight behind her words. For a moment, silence filled the room again. Only the heartbeat of the armor, that soft, steady pulse, echoed around them. Finally, the Queen spoke again, her voice lower. "You may go now, but tomorrow you will work on the inner core." Ethan blinked. "The inner core?" he repeated, surprised. "That area is restricted even to my own soldiers." Her gaze locked onto his. "Then consider it a privilege or a death sentence," she said quietly. "We shall see which." The guards entered again as she turned away, her figure glowing faintly under the dim lights. Ethan stood frozen for a moment, his mind spinning as they led him out. He couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. The armor that felt emotions, the strange images, her trembling voice. He had 1,000 questions, but one thought haunted him most. Why was an all-powerful alien queen feared by galaxies, hiding behind something that felt so alive and so lonely? Outside, as he walked back into the night air, he looked up at the distant twin moons. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but deep inside, he felt that something had already begun, something more dangerous than war, something more human than fear. The next day arrived heavy with tension, even before sunrise. The sky of Vornith Prime glowed with lightning from the storm rings. Ethan barely slept, his hands shaking as he prepared his tools. The Queen had ordered him to repair the inner core of her armor, the most sensitive and forbidden part. Every mechanic in the galaxy knew one thing. Touching the core of a living suit was like touching the soul of its wearer when he entered the royal bay again. The air felt charged. The guards stood in rigid silence, and their eyes followed him like lasers. He could hear whispers behind him. The humans still alive? He won't be for long. But Ethan ignored them, forcing his legs to keep moving inside. Queen Zelara stood near the platform. The soft glow of her armor dimmed. She looked different today, tired, almost fragile beneath the silver light. Her gaze flicked toward him, and for a brief second, he thought he saw hesitation in her eyes. "You're late," she said coldly, though he could tell she had been waiting. "My apologies, Your Majesty," he said, bowing his head. "I brought a stabilizer to help with the inner energy circuits." She said nothing, only turned slightly, exposing the center of her armor, right above her heart. It was cracked like glass, energy leaking out in faint blue threads. Ethan stepped closer, his breath shallow. He could feel the heat coming from her body through the armor. He adjusted his gloves and activated the nanotool. A faint hum filled the air as the light focused on the crack. He touched the damaged core. The armor pulsed. And this time, it reacted violently. The light around the Queen flared bright blue. A sharp sound filled the room, and Ethan stumbled back as energy rippled through the air. For a split second, he thought he saw her wince. Her body trembling under the armor's response, he froze. I'm sorry. I didn't mean." Her voice cut through the air, low but intense. "Do not stop," she commanded. "It's not pain. It's something else." Ethan hesitated. He looked up at her, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Her breath unsteady, he reached out again. Carefully this time, letting his fingers brush the glowing edges of the crack. The armor shimmered and softened under his touch. The pulse slowing, and then she spoke again. Her tone completely changed. "You're touching me too softly, human," she whispered. Ethan froze. The words echoed in his head, soft, almost teasing, but layered with something deeper. Emotion, longing, confusion. He stared at her, unsure if he had heard right. "Your Majesty?" Her eyes met his, and for the first time, she didn't look like a queen. She looked like someone lost between pain and memory. "Do it properly," she said quietly. "The armor can sense hesitation." "And it reflects it." Ethan swallowed, unsure what to do. He steadied his hand, his fingers pressing firmly this time, guiding the energy back into place. The armor glowed brighter, responding smoothly. But every motion made her react. A sharp breath, a faint tremor, a sound that wasn't quite pain. The pulse of the suit matched the rhythm of his heartbeat. It felt. Connected minutes passed like hours. Then, the last spark of energy sealed the crack. The light dimmed, and the room fell into silence again. Ethan stepped back, breathing hard. He looked at her. The Queen stood motionless. Her eyes closed, her face unreadable. Finally, she opened her eyes and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "No one has ever touched the armor without causing it pain," she said. Her gaze softened. "How did you do that, human?" Ethan didn't know how to answer. "I just listened," he said quietly. "I tried to understand it, not control it, for a long moment." She said nothing. Then, to his shock, she smiled faintly. A real smile. Small but unmistakable. Strange creatures. "You humans," she said softly. "You see life even in metal." The guards outside shifted nervously, hearing her voice gentler than ever before. Ethan lowered his tools, his chest still racing. He didn't understand what had just happened. But one thing was clear. The barrier between mechanic and monarch was beginning to crack. As he turned to leave, The Queen's voice stopped him. "Ethan," she said, calling him by name for the first time. He froze. "Yes, Your Majesty?" "Tomorrow you will continue," she said slowly. "There is still much that needs repair." He nodded, his throat dry, when he left the chamber. The echo of her words followed him through the empty halls. "You're touching me too softly. Human." He didn't know whether it was a warning or an invitation. But one thing was certain. Something far beyond technology was awakening inside the Queen's armor. And in her heart, the third day began under a blood-red sky. Vornith Prime's twin suns burned through the storm haze, casting long shadows across the royal fortress. Ethan walked toward the repair chamber with a tightness in his chest. Each step echoed in the metallic corridor. He could still hear her voice in his mind, calm, powerful, and strangely human. "You're touching me too softly." Human. The guard said nothing as he entered, but their eyes carried silent warning, like they expected him not to return. Inside, the chamber had changed again. The light was dimmer, the air colder, and in the center, Queen Zelara stood alone. Her armor was half-formed this time. Glowing with incomplete energy lines, he could see glimpses of skin beneath. Not human skin, but something luminous, smooth like liquid silver. Ethan froze, unsure whether to look away or continue. She noticed his hesitation instantly. "Do not fear what you see." "Human," she said, her tone almost daring. "This is how I test those who claim to repair what they do not understand." He approached slowly, setting down his tools. "What must I do today, Your Majesty?" he asked. Her eyes glowed faintly as she turned toward him. "Pain has meaning, human. It shows what must be endured," she said. "Today, you will find the pain inside this armor and face it," he frowned. Unsure what she meant, before he could ask, she extended her hand and pressed a sequence on her wristplate. The armor shimmered, unlocking several layers. The energy field surrounding them pulsed, and suddenly a second heartbeat filled the room. Ethan looked around, confused. "What is that sound?" "It is the armor's memory," she replied. "And the pain that lives within it." The walls flickered, and for a moment, Ethan saw flashes, battles, fire, screams of dying soldiers. The armor was showing him her past. The Queen stood still in the middle of it all, her expression hard, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of emotion. "This suit remembers every life it took," she said quietly. "Every wound, every scream, all burned into its living core." Her voice trembled for the first time. "Now you will feel what it feels," before Ethan could react. The floor panels under him glowed, sending a wave of cold through his body. It was like stepping into someone else's memory. He gasped as flashes of light and sound hit his mind. A battlefield drenched in fire. Alien bodies falling, a scream that wasn't his own. He fell to one knee, clutching his head. "Make it stop," he whispered. The Queen's voice echoed through the storm of visions. "If you cannot face the pain, you cannot repair what is broken." Ethan gritted his teeth, forcing himself to breathe. He looked up through the light. The Queen stood before him, calm but watching closely. She wasn't testing his skill this time. She was testing him. He reached forward, his hand trembling, and pressed it against the glowing armor once more. Instantly, the visions faded, replaced by silence. The pulse of the armor slowed, and for the first time, he could feel her heartbeat beneath the metal, slow, steady, alive. The Queen inhaled sharply, her body reacting as if he had touched something sacred. Her voice softened. "You stopped it," she said, disbelief in her tone. Ethan was sweating, breathing hard. "I didn't fight it," he said weakly. "I accepted it." Her expression shifted, part surprise, part something unspoken. "No one has ever done that," she whispered, almost to herself. They stood there in silence for a long time. Only the quiet hum of the armor filled the space between them. Then she turned her gaze toward him, her tone lower. "Tell me, human, why do you not fear me?" Ethan smiled faintly, though his voice shook. "Because, Your Majesty, I think you're not the monster everyone believes you are." Her eyes widened slightly, the blue light flickering in her armor, like a heartbeat skipping a beat. She stepped closer, her presence commanding yet strangely gentle. "Careful, human," she whispered. "You are stepping where even my own kind dare not tread." He met her gaze. "Maybe that's what makes us human," he said quietly. "We keep walking forward, even when we're afraid." For a moment, her face softened and the power in the room eased. But just as quickly, her guard returned. "Enough for today," she said sharply, though her voice trembled at the edges. "Tomorrow, you will not repair," she added. Turning away, "You will learn." Ethan bowed his head slightly, unsure what she meant, but as he left the chamber, he knew one thing: the Queen was changing. And so was he. He had come to fix armor, but somehow, piece by piece, he was uncovering the wounded soul hidden beneath it. The fourth day began under silver rain. The fortress of Vornith Prime shimmered beneath the storm clouds. Ethan walked through the cold corridors, his heart heavy but steady. He didn't understand why the Queen had spared him after yesterday's test. He had seen things no human was ever meant to see. Her pain, her memories, her battles, and yet she had looked at him with something new in her eyes, something that felt almost human. When he entered the chamber, it was quiet. The usual guards were gone, replaced by a single silent sentinel at the door. The Queen stood near a window made of dark crystal. Watching the lightning outside, her armor glowed faintly. But this time, it wasn't covering her completely. Parts of it floated around her body in segments, alive, like shards of light waiting to return home. "You came back again," she said without turning. Ethan nodded. "You ordered me to." "Your Majesty, most who see what you saw," she said softly, "run or die." Her reflection in the window looked almost fragile. Ethan hesitated. Maybe I'm just too stubborn. That made her turn. Slowly, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "Or perhaps," she said, "you are too curious." She gestured toward the hovering armor plates. "They have stopped responding to me," she said. "I need you to relink them." Ethan frowned. "Stopped responding? But why?" "Because," she said quietly, "the armor no longer trusts its host." He blinked, unsure he heard right. How can armor lose trust? Her gaze hardened. When the host uses it to kill too much, the words hung in the air. Heavy and cold, Ethan looked at her, at the faint scars visible along her neck, at the sadness hidden behind her strength. "Your armor feels guilt," he said softly. "It reflects mine," she whispered. "Every scream, every battle, every life I took in the name of peace. It remembers." For a long moment, neither spoke. Ethan finally said, "Then maybe it doesn't need to forget. It needs forgiveness." The Queen tilted her head slightly, almost confused. "Forgiveness?" she repeated, tasting the unfamiliar word. Ethan nodded. "Machines or armor or humans? It doesn't matter. Everything that feels needs to be understood." Her expression softened just a little, but there was still doubt in her voice. "You think a weapon deserves peace?" "I think its master does," Ethan said quietly. Something flickered in her eyes. Pain, then warmth. She stepped closer, the air between them vibrating with low energy. The glowing shards of armor drifted closer to him. Drawn by his calm heartbeat, he reached out his hand, and one piece of armor floated into his palm. It was warm, humming softly like a sleeping creature. As he touched it, it began to glow brighter, like it remembered him. The Queen's eyes widened. It responds to you, she said in disbelief. Ethan looked at the glowing fragment. Maybe it knows I'm not trying to control it. The other shards began to move too, circling them both in a slow dance of light. The hum grew louder, the energy around them pulsing in rhythm. The armor that had rejected its queen was now responding to a human, and for a brief moment, she looked at him not as a mechanic, not as a servant, but as someone who had reached into the very heart of her loneliness. Then, the lights dimmed suddenly. The shards froze in midair. The queen's expression changed, from awe to fear. Ethan stepped back. What's happening? Her voice turned sharp. The armor's neural link, it's merging with you. The light around them pulsed violently, and Ethan felt a sudden rush in his chest. Visions flashed again. Cities burning. Soldiers screaming, her voice crying out in battle. He stumbled forward, grabbing his head. Stop it! He gasped. The queen reached out, pressing her hand over his chest, the armor responding instantly. The energy field broke apart, and silence fell once again. They stood there, both breathing heavily, her hand still on his chest, his fingers trembling. Finally, she whispered, "You should not have done that." "I had to," he said, still catching his breath. "It was hurting you." For the first time, she looked truly shaken. "You don't understand." "Human," she said, "you touched my memory. And now, it remembers you." Ethan stared at her. "What does that mean?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It means," she said, her eyes flickering with strange light, "our fates are no longer separate." The night on Vornith Prime stretched long and restless. Inside the royal fortress, the halls were filled with whispers. Rumors spread like fire that the human mechanic had touched the queen's sacred armor, and lived that the armor itself had responded to him. No one dared speak his name aloud, but every alien soldier felt the shift in the air. The Queen of Vornith was changing, and that frightened everyone. Ethan stood in his small quarters, staring at his trembling hands. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes, her memories, her pain, her rage. He could still feel her heartbeat inside his chest, faint but real. It was as if part of the armor's living energy had bonded with him. He didn't know how to explain it. He only knew one thing: whatever was happening, it had linked him to her forever. When the guards came for him at dawn, he expected chains. Instead, they simply said, "Her Majesty requests your presence." No title, no threat, just quiet respect. That alone was strange enough to make his stomach twist. Inside the chamber, the queen stood beside a massive projection of the galaxy. Red lines marked borders between human and Vornith territory. Warships flickered like fireflies across the map. She didn't turn when he entered. "You feel it, don't you?" she said, her voice calm but distant. "The link between us." Ethan hesitated. "Yes, Your Majesty." She turned then, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "The armor remembers you now, human. It reacts to your emotions, as it once did to mine." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said softly, "that when you feel fear, the armor feels it too. When you feel courage, it awakens." Her expression darkened. "And when you feel anger, it could destroy both of us." Ethan's pulse quickened. "Then sever the link," he said quickly. "I didn't ask for this." Her gaze hardened. "You think I can?" She said, her tone sharp. "You think I wanted this bond?" Her voice cracked slightly, and she turned away. "The armor has chosen, human, and I have never been able to control its will." Silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of energy from the glowing map. Ethan finally said quietly, "Then maybe we stop fighting it." She looked back at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "Maybe it's not punishment," he said. "Maybe it's a bridge." Her expression softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. "You think this connection can save us?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Maybe it can save you." her eyes locked on his, glowing brighter. Searching. "You speak as if you understand me," she whispered. "I don't," he said honestly. "But I want to." The queen stepped closer, her armor pulsing faintly with each breath. Ethan could feel its warmth, like a living creature between them. Her voice softened. "When my people look at you, they see weakness," she said. "But when my armor looks at you, it feels peace." She reached out slowly, placing her hand against his chest. The glow of her armor spread through her palm into him. A wave of energy rippled across the room. Ethan gasped as visions flooded his mind again. Only this time, they weren't of war. He saw her as a child, running through silver fields under two suns. He saw her crowned, alone, surrounded by soldiers who feared her more than they loved her. He saw her face the day she was fused to the armor, screaming as it bonded to her skin, forever trapping her behind metal and pain. When the visions faded, Ethan was trembling. The queen's eyes shimmered with moisture. "Now you know," she whispered, "why I no longer feel, why I no longer trust touch." Ethan's voice shook. "It wasn't power you wanted, was it?" She shook her head slowly. "It was freedom," she said. "And now I live as a weapon built from my own fear." He took a deep breath. "Then maybe I can fix that too," he said softly. Her eyes widened slightly, part disbelief, part hope. "You cannot fix a soul." "Human," she whispered. "Maybe not," he replied. "But I can remind it how to feel." The queen turned away quickly, hiding the tremor in her voice. "You speak dangerously," she said, though her tone lacked its usual command. Outside, thunder rolled across the alien sky, and somewhere deep within the armor's core, a faint heartbeat echoed, not hers, not his, but something born from both. The fortress of Vornith Prime was silent that night. The air trembled with quiet tension beyond its walls. Fleets of alien warships waited for the Queen's command to attack the human colonies orbiting the twin suns. For years, the war had been inevitable, but now something had changed. In the heart of the fortress, two beings, one human, one alien, stood connected by something no weapon could break. Ethan stood near the center of the chamber, his chest still faintly glowing where the armor had once linked to him. The Queen stood before him, silent, her expression unreadable. Around them, the armor floated in pieces, pulsing softly like a living heartbeat. For the first time, it was calm, not restless, not angry. It responded not to command, but to peace. "You changed it," she said quietly, her voice soft enough to almost be human. Ethan shook his head. "No, Your Majesty. It changed itself when you did." Her eyes lowered. "I did not mean to let you inside my thoughts," she whispered. "No one has ever seen what you saw." "And yet," Ethan said gently, "you're still standing." Her lips curved faintly, not quite a smile, but something close. "Perhaps," she said, "your species is more dangerous than I believed. Outside?" Alarm suddenly blared through the fortress. A soldier ran into the chamber, dropping to one knee. "Your Majesty, the human fleets have entered orbit. They await your retaliation." The Queen didn't answer immediately. Her gaze shifted toward Ethan, who stood silent, waiting. Every life in orbit, every alien below, every future in the balance, hung on her next breath. "Order the fleet to stand down," she said finally. The soldier froze, eyes wide. "Your Majesty?" "I said stand down," she repeated, her tone iron but calm. "But the humans, they will not attack," she interrupted. "Not while I still wear this armor." The soldier bowed and left. Though confusion clouded his eyes, Ethan stepped closer. "You stopped a war," he said quietly. She turned toward him, the glow of her armor reflecting in her silver eyes. "Do not mistake this for mercy," she said. I am not doing this for your kind. Then why? Ethan asked softly. She hesitated, her voice trembling as she replied. Because you made me remember what it felt like to be alive. The words hit him harder than any weapon could. She reached up, pressing her palm over his heart. The armor's link will fade soon, she said. When it does, you will forget parts of me. Maybe even all of this, Ethan smiled faintly. I don't need memories to remember, he said. Some things stay without words. Her eyes softened. And for the first time, her hand didn't feel like a command. It felt like a goodbye. The armor around them began to hum, its pieces glowing brighter. Slowly, they drifted toward her, connecting one by one, sealing her form in radiant silver light. But this time, the glow wasn't cold. It was warm, gentle, almost human. Ethan stepped back, watching in silence as the last piece clicked into place. The armor pulsed once, not with dominance, but harmony. The connection between them glowed faintly, then began to fade. She looked at him through the bright light, her voice steady. Go home, human, she said softly. Your work here is finished. He nodded, but his throat tightened. He wanted to say something, but words felt small. Instead, he simply whispered, take care of yourself. Selara. For the first time, she didn't correct him for using her name. She only nodded once. When the light faded, Ethan stood alone in the silent chamber. The armor's hum was gone. The war alarms had stopped. Only the faint echo of her heartbeat lingered soft, steady, alive days later. When Ethan boarded the human freighter leaving Vornith orbit, he looked out the window one last time. The alien world glowed beneath the twin suns. Peaceful for the first time in years. Somewhere down there, the Queen of Vornith walked among her people, no longer a weapon, but a living being. And though the link was gone, he still felt it, faint and familiar, a pulse of shared humanity that crossed the stars. He smiled quietly to himself, whispering under his breath. I was just repairing her armor, he said. But in the end, I think she repaired me too.